Order does not arrive in Japan by conquest, it arrives by arrangement. Welcome to another story in the Brief Universal History of Civilizations series. Today, I'll tell you about Japan, from about 300 to 800 CE, a world where power forms without empire, and continuity matters more than expansion. This is an island society learning how to become a state without breaking its past. Authority grows from genealogy and ritual, not from abstract law. Clans do not disappear, they are repositioned. Monumental tombs rise, not as symbols of domination, but as records of hierarchy. A center appears, not as a sovereign command, but as a relational point others begin to face. Ideas arrive from the continent: Buddhism, Confucian norms, legal codes. None of them replace what exists. They are absorbed, calibrated, used. Japan borrows institutions without borrowing the idea of empire. Norms come before power. Harmony comes before rule. This episode follows how Japan learns to coordinate without conquering, to centralize without erasing lineage, and to build a state that delays empire rather than rushing toward it. From clans to center, the birth of relational order begins quietly. Morning mist hangs over a ceremonial ground as a young boy stands among adults twice his height. His robe feels stiff and wrong. A senior relative leans in and prompts him, and he repeats the names again. Ancestors first, then allied houses, then those who stand above them all. He does not know why these names matter. He only knows the order must be exact. A mistake would not be wrong. It would be misplaced. Around him, the court moves as if breathing together. Gestures are slow and rehearsed. No one raises a voice. Authority does not press down here. It arranges. The boy learns this without being taught. He senses who may step forward, who must wait, who belongs closer to the center. Politics stays invisible. Hierarchy does not. Later, he watches elders turn towards a low mound rising beyond the trees. The kofun dominates the landscape, heavy and deliberate. It does not explain power, it displays it. Earth, piled into shape, repeats the same lesson as the names he recites. Status is not argued, it is placed. He begins to understand that the world has a middle. It is not abstract and not everywhere. It lives where lineages meet, where ritual converges, where memory gathers weight. To belong is to know one's position in relation to that center, not to question it, you see. The frame widens. From about 300 to 500 CE, the Yamato confederation consolidates power by harmonizing elite clans rather than destroying them. Hierarchy deepens. Monumental tombs turn rank into landscape. The center emerges through precedence, not proclamation. As the ceremony ends, clouds lift. Beyond the sea, law is written and enforced. On the peninsula, kingdoms compete by force. Here, order grows quietly, learned early, held by memory, ritual, and careful placement. Morning rain has just passed, leaving the courtyard heavy with the smell of wet wood. A priest stands barefoot on packed earth as a procession enters. Monks from across the sea carry a wrapped figure between them. When the cloth is drawn back, a gilded Buddha appears, unfamiliar yet precise. The priest does not step away. He inclines his head and thinks only about placement. Meaning, once imported, must preserve continuity. He has tended these kami since childhood. He knows which stones must be greeted, which trees must not be cut, which words settle spirits after a poor harvest. What arrives now does not threaten this order. It arrives as another form, another way of arranging reverence. The monks speak of suffering and release, of law and compassion. The priest listens, weighing tone more than doctrine. You see, placement matters. A ritual without a place creates disorder. He imagines where the statue might stand, how offerings could be timed so they do not disturb older rhythms. This world does not ask which truth is higher. It asks whether relations remain balanced. Meaning proves useful when it fits. Around him, elders watch carefully. Some see advantage, others sense risk. Clans whisper, calculating how this new faith might strengthen their standing at court. The priest notices without judgment. New symbols always travel with ambition, and ambition must be managed. The view widens. In the 6th century, diplomatic contact with Korean kingdoms brings Buddhism to Japan. It arrives less as a metaphysical challenge than as a symbolic resource. Clans compete to sponsor temples, folding imported meaning into existing hierarchies rather than breaking them. As evening settles, the priest lights a familiar fire. After the old chants, he adds a new one, softly, softly. Beyond the sea, doctrines clash and empires argue belief. Here, continuity holds. The world remains intact, slightly rearranged. Rain taps against the tiled roof as an official reads, lips barely moving while his eyes follow the lines. The hall stays quiet. The text in his hands does not threaten punishment or demand obedience. It advises. Respect harmony, honor rank, act with restraint. He understands at once that this is not law in the continental sense. It is guidance, a mirror held up to conduct. Norms come before power. He imagines how each sentence applies to his own posture, his tone when speaking upward, his patience with those below. The 17-article Constitution does not say what happens if he disobeys. It suggests who he becomes if he fails to fit. Authority is not enforced here. It is felt through alignment, I mean. Around him, the court learns together. No one holds real coercive force. Armies belong to clans, not the center. Orders cannot be backed by violence without risking fracture. Behavior must do the work instead. Courtesy replaces compulsion. Governance becomes an exercise in teaching people how to relate, not forcing them to comply. He senses the influence behind the words. Confucian phrases arrive from across the sea, reshaped to suit this place. Hierarchy is not imported as ideology, it is translated into practice. The text becomes a shared reference point, a way to reduce friction in a crowded court where power remains fragile. The view steps outward. In the early 7th century, the Japanese court adopts this constitution as a guide to conduct rather than enforceable law. With no central army to rely on, rule depends on normative coordination among elites. As the rain eases, the official rolls the scroll closed. Elsewhere, law binds through sanction and force. Here, order forms through shared restraint. The court learns to govern by shaping behaviour, because behaviour is all it can reliably command. The clan head listens as the messenger delivers the words, voice formal and almost apologetic. Private ownership of land is abolished. Fields, forests, people, all are reclassified. He nods once. There is nothing to ask. Negotiation belongs to an earlier moment. This is not an argument, it is a switch, you know. Outside, the sky hangs low and grey. Summer heat presses into the hall, thick and unmoving. He remembers how authority once worked, through marriage ties, through ritual precedents, through long evenings of careful speech. Harmony used to absorb conflict. Now harmony has reached its limit. The meaning has not changed. Order still matters. The center still exists to coordinate relations. But the method has hardened. What could not be aligned through etiquette will now be aligned through command. He feels the difference immediately. Decisions arrive finished. They no longer ask for adjustment. His land is not taken as punishment. It is reassigned as principle. The court needs predictability. The old balance between clans has become friction. Too many interests, too little control. Force enters not as cruelty, but as efficiency. The clan head understands this with bitter clarity. This is not chaos, it is reorganization. He watches younger relatives struggle to accept it. They speak of injustice. He speaks of reality. A center that cannot compel will fracture. A center that compels risks resentment, but survives. The state has chosen survival. The view steps back. In 645 CE, the Taika reforms mark a decisive shift. Clan autonomy is broken. Land and people move under central authority. When negotiated harmony fails, bureaucratic centralization takes its place. As evening falls, the clan head walks his boundary one last time. Elsewhere, centralization grows through long-built institutions or constant war. Here, harmony gives way to force without changing its aim. Order remains the goal. Only the path towards it narrows. The soldier steps onto the shore at dawn, armor dulled by salt and smoke. Waves roll in gently, indifferent to defeat. He does not speak of bravery, he speaks of distance, of how the sea stretches wider than maps suggest, of how supply lines thin until they snap. His voice carries no bitterness, only precision. Well? On the march home, he counts what failed. Boats scattered by wind, horses lost before battle, messages arriving too late. The continent feels heavy with men, cities, grain. The islands are not. He understands this now in his body, not as theory. Strength must fit its ground. Order must respect scale. At court, officials listen closely. No one shouts. No one demands revenge. The loss does not wound pride so much as clarify form. The world is larger than their reach. If order is to last, it must know its limits. Ambition beyond capacity is not courage, it is disorder. He notices how quickly attention turns inward. Fortifications are discussed, roads measured, provinces counted. Defense replaces projection. The defeat becomes instruction. The center does not break, it contracts deliberately. The view widens. In 663 CE, Japanese forces are defeated at Baekgang during fighting on the Korean peninsula. The loss exposes logistical and demographic limits. Rather than pursue expansion, the court chooses consolidation and strategic closure, redefining the scale of viable order. As evening settles, the soldier removes his armor. Elsewhere, empires test borders again and again. Here, defeat produces restraint. The islands do not dream of conquest. They learn where the edge lies and build within it. Morning light falls cleanly, across the straight avenues of Nara. A woman balances baskets of rice and vegetables on a pole across her shoulders as she walks towards the temple storehouse. The city feels deliberate. Streets meet at right angles. Buildings face the correct direction. Nothing grows by accident. She always knows where she is, and that certainty itself feels new. She passes an official's desk where records are checked and seals pressed into clay. Law lives here on paper and in posture. The Taiho Code defines who may collect, who may judge, who may serve. She cannot read it, but she feels its weight in the rhythm of her day. Deliver to the temple, report to the clerk, return to the market. Order moves through her routine like a quiet current. The state is taking form through law and habit rather than force. Yet she also knows what lies beyond the capital. Villages where instructions arrive late, local elites who bow to the center but keep their own ways, taxes negotiated more often than enforced. The city suggests completeness. The provinces soften it through distance alone. At the temple gate, bells sound gently. Ritual and administration share the same space without tension. The state does not crush belief, it frames it. Harmony is built into streets, schedules, offices. Everything appears settled, yet she senses strain beneath the surface. The center depends on cooperation it cannot fully compel. The view steps back. In the early 8th century, the Taiho Code and the founding of Nara as a permanent capital formalized Japanese statehood. Bureaucracy becomes a technology of coordination. Central authority, however, remains shallow beyond the capital. Order is completed on paper, while tension between center and elite is deferred. As she leaves the temple, clouds gather over distant hills. Elsewhere, bureaucracy hardens into empire, or power fragments into conflict. Here, the state takes shape carefully, knowingly incomplete. The problem is recorded, stored like grain, and left for another season. What this episode leaves behind is a state that chooses continuity over conquest, alignment over rupture. Japan becomes political without becoming imperial. Power learns to move quietly through role, ritual, and restraint rather than proclamation. What is gained is durability. What is lost is reach. The center survives, but it never fully resolves its dependence on elites it cannot entirely command. The order that forms between about 300 and 800 CE is careful and self-aware. It knows its limits. It absorbs foreign ideas without surrendering its core. It turns defeat into instruction. Law becomes a tool of coordination, not domination. Harmony remains the goal, even when force briefly enters the path toward it. Well, yet something is also deferred. The tension between court and province does not disappear. It is written down, ritualized, managed, and postponed. The state holds together by balance rather than closure. The problem is not solved. It is stored, waiting for another configuration of power to bring it back into motion. That is the quiet legacy of early Japan. A civilization that learns how to govern without shouting, how to change without breaking, and how to accept that not every question must be answered immediately. In the next episode, the scene shifts to the Korean peninsula, from the Three Kingdoms to Joseon, where unity, morality, and bureaucracy collide over more than 1,000 years, and where the struggle to define order takes a very different path.